Good day, you're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Danie, Laurel.
And I'm Delos Santos. Here are today's top stories. With the peso breaking through the 56 per dollar level, the Bangko Sentral says it's ready to raise interest rates by 50 basis points in August.
The country's dollar reserves fall to its lowest level in almost 2 years as the peso continues to weaken against the greenback.
Monde Nissin shares dropped by more than 7% following health warnings issued by some European countries. The manufacturer of Lucky products also clarifies that ethylene oxide is not added to their products.
And more Filipinos are turning to e-transactions. That's as digital payments rise to 30% in 2021. We begin our broadcast with the Bangko Sentral saying it is prepared to raise interest rates by a half a point in August.
That's after the peso plummeted to the 56 per dollar level after more than 16 years. The local currency closed at 56.06 against the greenback on Thursday, its worst finish since September 2005. The peso is now 39 centavos away from the record low of 56.45, which was recorded in October 2004. Bangko Sentral Felipe Medalla says the recent hawkish stance of the U.S. Fed has placed strong depreciation pressures on global currencies such as the peso. Medalla says that if such pressures are unchecked, this could add to high domestic inflationary risks. The Bangko Sentral earlier said it's open to hike rates by at least 100 basis points more this year after inflation soared to a near 4-year high of 6.1% in June. The Monetary Board has raised interest rates by 50 basis points so far this year, bringing the policy rate to 2.5%. The board will hold their next meeting in August. Let's get right to it and ask our expert as to how lower can the peso go. We have on the show Nicky Mapa, Senior Economist over at ING Manila. Nicky, good morning.
Good morning and happy Friday.
Okay, let's maintain that happy Friday stance there. Okay, is the peso bound for a new record low? Last time we talked, you said 56 likely by October. It's only July. What's happening here?
Well, several reasons for peso weakness now. On the international front, you have safe haven demand for the currency. So many things going on. You have fears of recession. At the same time, the very hawkish stance by the Fed really helping power dollar strength across the board. On top of that, you have domestic factors that are sort of piling in on this. You have the current account deficit that is now forecast to hit 19.5 billion by the end of the year. This tells us that more dollars will be leaving the country, and that's one of the reasons why we're expecting. That's why we're experiencing such a push on spot. Lastly, I guess the third aspect of it would be the anxiety that the market has over the projected interest rate differential of the Philippines and the U.S. Just think about this. By mid next month, we could have the Fed funds target rate at the same level as the BSP's policy rate. I've never seen that as an analyst. I don't think any of us have ever seen that. So that's sort of keeping everyone, I guess, on very much on edge as BSP sort of lackadaisical still in its rate hike cycle, while the Fed's just powering through, very determined to get inflation under wraps.
Nicky, some economists are saying that the Fed might actually start easing by next year on the back of fears of a recession over in the U.S. Will that spread narrow, especially since we may be hiking, the good gov said, by 100 bips by the end of the year?
Yeah, well, we have the Fed sort of considering a reversal as early as mid next year, mainly because we do expect with all the rate hikes that we're seeing and all the inflation we're seeing in the U.S., possibly some slowdown over there. So I guess this would give the BSP some reprieve, but right now we're dealing with red hot inflation onshore, and they will have to address that given their price stability mandate.
Okay, given that as well, Nicky, give us an idea here. What do you think is going to happen? You have the DBCC set to meet later. What are expectations from that?
Well, I think the numbers were sort of released early. We do see that the new administration is targeting slower growth this year, and that's to be expected. We have several headwinds facing the economy right now. But after this year, I think they're projecting a faster pickup in growth. Several, I guess, possible or positives that the Philippines has. If you look at consumption now, despite the record high or the accelerating inflation, consumption has held up considerably. I was expecting spending to slow down even faster, but so far, traffic's still bad. Malls are still packed and restaurants are full. So looks like we're still the revenge spending and the whole demographic dividend still paying off for the Philippines. But yeah, of course, these headwinds that we're facing right now definitely going to slow growth in the second half of this year.
But why is our chance of a recession significantly lower than the rest of Asia, the rest of the world? I mean, the US is almost clearly on that path. And for us, I mean, we've talked to several, and even the economic managers are saying that's probably not going to happen. Why is that the case?
Yeah, I think, the BSP came out swinging, I think it was last month, and saying, no, the chances for stagflation in the Philippines, or a recession for that matter, very, very low. The Philippine economy does have momentum, and as long as you keep the economy open, no lockdowns and the like, I think there's significant momentum. The demographic dividend comes into play. Consumption is still going to be quite healthy. Of course, inflation hurts, and we hope that the authorities can help bring that down. But the economy is sort of slowly returning to its pre-COVID form. However, because of the high inflation, projected pickup in interest rates, it might be a while before we get back to full pre-COVID form of 6 to 7% growth. A robust 5% growth is nothing to sneeze at, and I think that's where we're headed next year.
Are you confident that inflation will be peaking this quarter, as per Morgan Stanley or other economists? Especially since we see, but we see commodity prices at the lowest we've seen in months, and even oil, and plus this recession, at least offshore, might be lowering that still. Would that not have an impact, at least here?
Yeah, so what we've been through in the past few months is the first round effect. So this is the right hook to your chin. In the next few months, we'll be dealing with the second round effects that have just been very much apparent. Wage hikes, transport fare adjustments. You're hearing firms saying, we haven't been able to pass the increase in cost of production to consumers just yet. And you're going to be sure they're going to be passing that along in the next few months as, maybe prices come back. Or a little less apprehension. So second round effects are going to bite us, I think, in the second half of the year. I actually have inflation at 7% by November, mainly because these second round effects will come into play. And second round effects, whenever they start to sort of evolve, they sort of infect the rest of the CPI basket. So yes, we got hit by the transport and utility price increases, but in the second half of the year, I'm starting to see more items in the CPI basket become infected with high inflation, as firms are just have no choice but to increase their prices. I mean, when firms have to chuck out a little more for wages, you'll be sure that they're going to be tacking that on their sticker price.
Okay, speaking of wages here, unemployment figures came out yesterday. Your thoughts on those figures, Nicky, and how do you think is that going to play out, at least in the near term as well?
Yeah, well, I think the labor numbers sort of reflect what we've been expecting after the sort of election-related sort of sugar high from the growth and all the economic activity. The growth the labor market numbers reflect that there are challenges that we're going to face. So unemployment ticked up a bit, back to 6%, and underemployment also higher. So with the labor force participation increasing, so you have all these people very confident of the economy of finding a job, unable to find work, mainly because you have these headwinds that we're facing. So I think the labor market numbers sort of foretell, we're going to see some headwinds in the second half of the year, but it's still on a very, I guess, good sort of, maybe not a straight shot down to pre-COVID levels of about 4.5% to 5%, but there's a definite trajectory lower, and we can keep this, I guess, momentum as long as we continue to reopen the economy and grow we continue to grow in the second half of the year.
All right, and Nicky, last question here. Not DBCC, but the economic managers have now said 6.5% to 7.5% growth this year and possibly next year. How long is it going to take with this level of growth to repay back the debts that we had incurred during the pandemic to get back to the pre-COVID levels?
Yeah, I guess that all depends on what type of fiscal plan we have. Like, are we going to go into belt tightening? Are we going to go into expansionary fiscal policy? So even if the economy is growing by a certain pace, if the new administration is in the mood to stimulate the economy, bring out all these bills, that might take a bit longer, or we might have to go faster to really get those debt and deficit levels down. If you look at their targets for both the deficit and debt to GDP ratio, it's quite a I say a moderated pace of decline. We still have the debt to GDP ratio above 60% by 2025. I'm not sure ratings agencies are going to be comfortable with that, but yeah, I guess if they can generate growth and sort of offset some of the debt, then maybe that's their strategy for growth going forward.
Okay, so it remains to be seen whether it's going to be expansionary or we'll be tightening our belts. And we're waiting, of course, on those pronouncements. And that's going to be later on as well, some new targets from the DBCC. Thank you so much, Nicky Mapa, ING Bank Senior Economist.
Now, pausing for a quick break, but coming right up after that. The Health Department clarifies that there are no orders to recall Lucky Me products in the Philippines following health advisories issued by some European countries against the noodle brand.
More of that and other stories when Business World Live returns. Stay with us.
And you're still watching Business World Live here in One News. I'm Jess Delos Santos.
And I'm Danie, Laurel. Now, manufacturing activity in the Philippines grew for the 14th straight month.
Now, the PSA says this was buoyed by the further reopening of the economy as the number of COVID cases declined. Factory output, as measured by the Volume of Production Index, inched up by 1.9% year-on-year in May. This was higher than the revised 1.2% in April, but a huge decline from the 267% growth a year prior. In comparison, the country's manufacturing PMI eased to 54.1% in May from 54.3% in April. This was the fourth straight month that the PMI remained above 50, signaling expansion. The Philippines' dollar reserves have declined to a 21-month low of nearly $102 billion in June. That's 1.6% lower than the revised $103.6 billion gross international reserves level in May. This is also the fourth straight month that the country's foreign exchange buffer has dropped. The BSP says that the month-on-month decrease mainly reflected the national government's payments of foreign currency debt. That's on top of the downward adjustment in the value of the central bank's gold holdings due to the decrease in the price in the international market. Cold chain logistics firm ISOC, which operates under the business name Orca, has filed for an initial public offering worth almost 1.5 billion pesos. The company intends to use the IPO to use proceeds to fund its expansion plans. Now, the SEC says Orca plans to sell a total of 1.7 billion shares priced at up to 88 centavos apiece. The company's shares will be traded on the small, medium, and emerging board of the PSE.
Monde Nissin, the maker of Lucky Me Pancit Canton noodles, clarifies that their products do not contain ethylene oxide. This clarification comes after Taiwan and several European countries took Pancit Canton off of their shelves over the alleged contamination of ethylene oxide, a kind of pesticide. In a statement, Monde Nissin denied that their products contain the chemical. They explained it is only commonly used for the treatment of spices to control microbial growth that's typical in agricultural products. The noodle maker says that traces of this material may remain when it is processed into seasoning and sauces. Still, the firm maintains that all Lucky Me products comply with food and safety standards not only in the Philippines but also in the United States. Despite this clarification, Monde Nissin posted a record drop on the local bourse, with shares falling by 7.22% to close at 13 pesos and 36 centavos apiece on Thursday. The health department has also clarified that there are no orders to recall Lucky Me products in the Philippines.
May specific yan na batches ng produkto. So kung ano man po ang matagpuan ng ating Food and Drug Administration na talagang with the presence of this specific component or chemical, yun lang po yung tatanggalin sa merkado. Dahil yun po yung mga apektado. Pero katulad ng sabi ko nga kanina, aantayin po natin yung resulta ng investigasyon na sinasagawa ng Food and Drug Administration para mas maging sigurado po ang ating mga sagot.
More and more Filipinos are turning to e-transactions. Data from the Bangko Sentral show that digital payments rose to over 30% in 2021. That's from about 20% in 2020. The value of digital payments in the country also represented more than 44% of total retail payments last year, up from barely 27% recorded a year earlier. Key contributors to overall growth of digital payments were merchant payments, P2P remittances, and business payments of salaries and wages. And those are the biggest stories on the economic and corporate front today. I'm Jess Delos Santos.
And I'm Danie, Laurel. We are One News, all sides, all the time. Don't go away. We'll give you the latest on the local bourse when Businessworld Live returns. Stay with us.
And you're still watching Businessworld Live here on One News. Now, Dan, Monde Nissin took a painful hit on yesterday's trade. It was the hot topic all over. I don't know about you, but as for me, I'm still gonna eat my noodles here. But how is Monde Nissin moving so far this morning?
All right. Well, a lot of things remain to be seen according to the health department, so they need to still investigate that matter. As of now, investors still jittery. You can see that down by 0.15, so 13 pesos and 34 centavos. This IPO'd at around 13 pesos and 50 centavos just in May of 2021. So it's the biggest loss that we've seen since at least May 2021. And it was actually wiping out almost 19 billion pesos worth of the company in terms of the market cap. So you can see that right down there, Jess. Now let's take a look at some positive news as we end, of course, the week. And you can see the index going back up after, you can see this downward trend here yesterday. That was on the back of profit taking, and we're back up to 6,300 levels. Who knows whether we'll get back to those 6,400 levels. Now, China Bank Securities says this is a healthy pullback. Global Link says the pullback yesterday was due to the unemployment figures, and also the fact that net foreign selling happened again after just one day of net foreign buying, Jess. So there you go, the index up for the Friday at least.
Nowadays, we take whatever good news we can, of course. But let's zero in on the renewable sector here. Dan, you have a mining corporation at the same time, a gas player. Looks like interested to at least enter the picture.
I know, very interesting. Nickel Asia, so that's of course our biggest nickel miner, will be joining Shell, which is of course an oil and gas company, in an 8.5 billion peso venture for Philippine renewable energy. They say that will cover around 73.9 gigawatts of power. So we don't know exactly what types of renewable energy yet there, but nevertheless, investors seem to be cheering that on. Together with the local markets, Nickel Asia up by 0.6 centavos, so that's 1% up to 5 pesos and 86. And speaking of renewable energy, Jess, another one with more projects here, that is AC Energy, and you can see that also enjoying a bit of a bump up, although in the past 3 days it's also down by 2%. They will be building 2 wind farms. It's in Pagudpud. If you've ever been there, that's going to cost them around 17 billion pesos for a combined capacity of 230 megawatts.
Okay, it seems as though really sustainability is the name of the game nowadays. And that's it for today, July 2022. Join us again Monday next week at exactly 9:30 a.m. You can also catch us on Signal Play. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News Live anytime, anywhere. I'm Jess de Los Santos.
And I'm Danie Laurel. Mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. We are One News, all sides, all the time.